Matthew chapter 9. And he, having stepped into a ship, came through to the beyond, and came into his own city. And perceive, they brought to him a paralytic, one having been cast on a place of reclination. And Jesus, having perceived their faithing, said to the paralytic, Child, be encouraged, your frailances are remitted. And perceived, some of the scribes said in themselves, This one blasphemes. And Jesus, having perceived their intentions, said, Why do you intend evil in your hearts? For what is easier to say, Your phalanxes are remitted, or to say, Raise yourself up and walk? But that you may perceive that the Son of the human has authority on the earthland to remit phalanxes. Therefore it is. Then he said to the paralytic, as one having been raised up, Lift up your place of reclination, and go into your dwelling site. And having been raised up, he came into his dwelling site. But the throngs, having perceived this, were made to fear and glorified God, having given such authority to human. And Jesus, led passing by, perceived the human, called Matthew, having seat on in the duty office, and says to him, Follow me. And rising, he followed him. And at their lying up to supper in the house, perceive many duty collectors and failers having come lay up to supper together with Jesus and his learning ones. And the Pharisees, having perceived this, said to his learning ones, Wherefore does your teacher eat with duty collectors and failers? But hearing this, he said, Those being strong have not need of healers, but those having it badly. But going, learn what it is. Mercy I want, and not sacrifice. For this cause I did not come to call the righteous, but failers. Then the learning ones of John come to him, saying, Wherefore do we, yea, we and the Pharisees fast, but your learning ones do not fast? And Jesus said to them, The sons of the bride chamber are not able to mourn on for as long a time as the bridegroom is with them. But the days will come when, as it were, the bridegroom will be lifted away from them, and then they will fast. But not one patches a patch of an unfulled rag on an old raiment, for too easily it lifts away its completion from the raiment, and the tear becomes worse. Also, they do not cast shed young wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wineskins are rent, and the wine will be poured out, and the wineskin parts are wholly loosened away. But for this cause, young wine one has as cast sheddable into new wineskins, and both are guarded together. While he was speaking this to them, perceive, one ark person having come to prayingly crawl to him, saying, My daughter has presently come to the end, but as having come, set on your hands on her, and she will live. And Jesus, having been raised up, followed him, and also his learning ones. And perceive, a woman, being blood flowing for 12 years, having come from behind, touched the tassel of his raiment. For this cause she said in herself, So if I only touch his raiment, I will be saved. But Jesus, having been turned and having perceived her, said, Be encouraged, daughter, your faithing has saved you. And the woman was saved from that hour. And Jesus, having come into the house of the ark person, and having perceived the flutists and the throng being tumultuated, he said, Abscond up, for the girl did not deaden away, but for this cause down rests. And they laughed at him, perceiving that she deadened away. But when the throng was driven out, coming in, he held her by the hand, and the girl was raised up. And the explanation thereof came out into that whole earthland. And Jesus, lead passing by from there, two blind ones followed him, making an outcry and saying, Have mercy on us, son of David. But he, having come into the house, the two blind ones came to him. And Jesus says to them, Do you faith that I am able to do this? They say to him, Yes, Lord. Then he touched their eyes, saying, According to your faithing, let it be made to become to you. And their eyes were opened. And Jesus was resentful on account of them, saying, See, let not anyone know. But those having come out thoroughly explained regarding him in that whole earthland. But at the coming out, perceive, they brought to him a deaf mute, being demonized. And when the demon was driven out, the deaf mute spoke, and the throngs marveled, saying, Never was such made to appear in Israel. But the Pharisees said, By means of the ark being of the demons, he drives out the demons. And Jesus led about in all the cities and in the villages, teaching in their synagogues, and heralding the well announcement of the regency. and curing in regards to all every sickness and every softness. But having perceived the throng, he was innerly moved concerning them, since they were ones having been pestered and having been flung about as sheep, not having a herdsman. Then he says to his learning ones, that abides, the harvest is much, but the workers are few. Hence, be made entreating before the Lord of the harvest, so that he drive out workers into his harvest.